When I think about societal problems, I try to think less like a politician and more like an engineer. In software, when a program malfunctions, it will spit out a log of what steps the program took leading up to the malfunction. Engineers use this to figure out what went wrong. But oftentimes the trail is not so clear. Sometimes the trail may be interpreted incorrectly at first. The most common mistake is to not look far back enough at the trail's history. These trails can be very long and cumbersome, so it's reasonable to be tempted to accept the first plausible source that you find along the trail and stop there. But if you're not addressing the actual source of the problem, you won't solve the actual problem. It's like weeding. Instead of pulling out the weed by the root, you'll have expended unnecessary energy plucking its leaves and eventually find that the weed just grows back. Finding the true source often requires persistent digging. But unlike with a computer program or garden, society's weeds are not so simply addressed. The trails are often far more complicated, and it can be very difficult to know if we've actually found the source of the problem. Once we do uncover the source, or more likely, sources, devising a solution is hardly ever simple.
So we really don't know.
But I believe it can be much more manageable when approached with a good framework. When we are faced with a daunting problem, we first need to take a step back to make sure we're seeing the problem clearly. What do we know about this problem? Is it a new problem or an old one? Could it be the symptom of something larger? We may have to do some research to answer these questions and properly understand the scope of what we're trying to solve. We likely will have to study some trails and resist the temptation to declare sources prematurely. Once we think we've got a sound understanding of our daunting problem, we'll then try to find smaller sub-problems and continue doing so until we have a problem that is approachable and actionable. Once we have an actionable problem, we can more reasonably address it and then move on to the next one. Even if it turns out that we were wrong about a source or solution along the way, we will at least have gained more information about our problem as we return to the trail. I believe that if we think more like engineers instead of politicians, we can take some of society's biggest and most intimidating problems and break them into more palatable objectives. Instead of spinning in circles, slapping band-aids on an ever-growing list of overwhelming crises, over time, we'll have a much better chance at making actual progress.